Please rise and remove all headgear. Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. Salute. I invite the audience to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as Alyssa Edison sings our national anthem.
Broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streamed, and the rockets red clear, their bombs bursting in air, gave proof
Color guards, return to rank.
Please be seated. Allow me to introduce this year's president of the St. Croix Central Middle School Student Council, Nicole Metlevin.
Welcome everyone to our annual Veterans Day program. Welcome and thank you for attending. We are here today to honor our heroes, to remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. At this time, I would like to ask the service members and veterans who are here to please stand. I invite our students and visitors to extend their appreciation once again for our guests with a round of applause. Thank you for answering the call to duty. You may be seated. At this time, I would also like to ask the family members of any service member to stand. So SCC students, if you have a family member, a parent, grandparent, brother or sister who is in the military or has served in the military, to please stand now. Along with the rest of you who are standing, I am too related to a veteran. My father, Dennis Hedelved, had served in the military for 24 years. He served in the Army for 2 years and served as an HR recruiter in the Air Force for 22 years. We know you have lived through difficult times, times of worry and concern. We want to publicly thank you for your sacrifice as well. Would everyone please extend your support to these family members by your applause. You may be seated. Thinking of the heroes who join us in this group today, and those who are here only in spirit, a person cannot help but feel awed by the greatness of what we encounter. We stand in the midst of patriots and the family and friends of those who have nobly served. On Veterans Day, we come together to pay tribute to the men and women who have worn the uniform of the United States Armed Forces. Americans across this land commemorate the patriots who have risked their lives to preserve the liberty of our nation, the families who support them, and the honor of the heroes who are no longer with us.
Most of us are not directly touched by war. As a consequence, we may not always fully grasp the depths of sacrifice, the profound costs that are made money. Our troops and their families understand this all way too well.
So today, we and people around the world will stop to remember those who proudly came forth and bravely put their lives on the line to make this world a better place. The last day of World War I was November 11th, 1918, known as Armistice Day.
On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, an armistice, or temporary cessation of hostilities, was declared between the Allied nations and Germany in the First World War, known at the time as the Great War.
The Great War officially ended when the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919, in the Palace of Versailles in France.
Iron, however, has ceased on November 11, 1918, which was regarded as the end of the war to end all wars.
The last day of World War I was November 11, 1918, known as Armistice Day. In November 1919, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day.
In 1954, after World War II, it was recognized that this was war regarded the greatest mobilization of soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen in the nation's history. After 5.7 million more American forces
Korean aggression, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a bill changing the name of Artisans' Day and proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day. He called upon the Americans everywhere to rededicate themselves to the cause of peace.
But it is not our weapons or our technology that make us free. It is our matchless spirit, skill, and devotion of our men and women in uniform.
Throughout the nation's history, the members of our armed forces have volunteered in the face of danger to protect the idea and advance the cause of peace around the world. These brave patriots have humbled tyrants, liberated continents, and freed millions from unspeakable oppression.
On Veterans Day, we remember those who have served in previous wars, those who are serving today, and those who did not live to become veterans.
Our nation is blessed by these brave defenders, and we owe a debt of gratitude to all those who have worn America's uniform with pride.
Today we thank all of the men and women who have served and are currently serving in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard around the world. And we urge all Americans to take time to thank those who sacrifice so that we can enjoy the blessings of freedom.
The price of freedom is high. We cannot afford to forget those willing to pay for it. Today we celebrate America's veterans for keeping the nation, the land of the free and the home of the brave. As we pay tribute to our veterans with ceremonies on this day, we must never forget the sacrifices they and their families have made out of the deepest sense of service and love of our country. We are most grateful to introduce one such veteran, our speaker today. Our guest speaker is a man who actively served our country for 22 years. He spent 17 of those years overseas in places including the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, Wales, and Newfoundland, as well as Hawaii, California, Alaska, and Minnesota. He served on submarines, destroyers, aircraft carriers, and flew in P-3s and C-130s. He currently resides in Amory, Wisconsin, and works as the Polk County Veterans Services Officer. Please give a warm SCC welcome to retired Navy officer, Lieutenant Commander Rick Gates.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you for having me as your speaker today. I've got an in. Ms. Lombardo is a daughter of one of my very, very good friends, and she asked me if I'd participate, and I jumped at the chance. So it's a little out of my county. I don't think anybody would be too offended. I know Merlin's not. So I am a former Navy. I did spend 22 years in the service. For the Navy folks over here, I wasn't always a zero. I spent 12 of it enlisted, so I know how both ends work, and I know who does most of the work. So I did serve in both the Pacific and the Atlantic fleets, mostly in intel, worked in buildings with no windows, anti-submarine warfare. My job was to find the bad guys, localize and track them, so the active forces could neutralize them. I enjoyed it very much, and I would have been a 30-year man if we hadn't won the Cold War. Once we won the Cold War, a lot of us lost our jobs because there weren't any submarines to chase. But following my service, I went straight into Polk County as the County Veteran Service Officer. My function is to help veterans get their benefits, the benefits that they've earned through their service, everything from health care to disability compensation, going to school, buying homes, those types of things. And I enjoy it immensely. It's very gratifying. And of course, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to veterans. Not only am I one myself, but that's what I do every day, every for the last 16 years and hopefully for the next couple of years. Veterans Day is special, but I want to stop just for a second and mention that a lot of people confuse Veterans Day with Memorial Day. You know, we think of them kind of on the same level, the same terms, but they're two very, very different days. Memorial Day is when we memorialize people who have died, people no longer with us. Specifically, people who died in combat defending our country, but really all veterans who wore the uniform that are no longer with us. That's Memorial Day. We memorialize the dead. It's a very important celebration. We're celebrating their contributions. We're celebrating the fact that we live the way we do because of their service, their courage, and a lot of times their death. So that's Memorial Day. Veterans Day is a whole different kettle of fish. Veterans Day is a day that we recognize and honor all veterans, living or deceased, all past, all present, and even all future veterans. Veterans, and I have to say that the school did a tremendous job. You took half the wind out of my sails, covered a lot of the stuff I was going to cover, so I'm going to ad-lib a little. But veterans are people that are very, very special because they are people that stood up and answered the call when their country needed them. Some of them were drafted, some of them volunteered, it doesn't much matter. They all wrote a blank check and were prepared to give their lives, and some do. Fortunately, the vast majority of us get through it relatively unscathed, but a veteran's a veteran's a veteran. In my view, a veteran is anybody who's sworn an oath to uphold and support the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and frankly, any guy or gal who put a uniform on. To me, that's a veteran. There's a lot of different definitions. There's peacetime, there's wartime, there's activated guardsmen and reservists, there's, Coast Guard during time of war, yada, yada, yada. There's federal definitions, there's state definitions, and then we all kind of have our own definition. But I'm the guy that works with veterans as a job, and in my view, you're a veteran if you wore a uniform and took an oath. I don't care for how long, for a day, a week, a month, a year, 2 decades, it doesn't matter. A vet is a vet is a vet. The origins of Veterans Day, we pretty well covered that, you guys did. But it did start out as Armistice Day. We'd always had wars throughout history. When World War I came along, it was the first time we'd had war on a global scale with that many nations and that amount of death. It was just horrendous, the number of people killed. It was also the introduction, for the most part, of modern weaponry, machine guns, tanks, more and more creative ways to do more and more harm, and it was just horrible. The death was just even today people shudder when they study it. We thought that was the war to end all wars. They called it the Great War, and they assumed that there'd never be another one. Well, lo and behold, not long after that, we did have another one. And so Armistice Day, which was to recognize the end of the First World War, the Great War at the time, because there hadn't been a Second World War yet, that's evolved, and it's now Veterans Day to recognize all veterans. Veterans, like I said, come in all types and categories: male, female, active duty, reservist, guardsmen, wartime, peacetime, disabled, homeless, etc. Like I said, they all took the same oath, regardless of their circumstances. Veterans probably, I guess they started officially during the Revolutionary War. There was the French and Indian War before that, and there were different things, but as a nation, as we were formed, that's probably the start of official veteran status. A lot of the folks that fought in that war, that birthed our nation, were literally citizen soldiers. That they were militias, they were privately raised armies. Some of them, I don't think they were conscripting them, but they were certainly enlisting them. That's where the term enlistment came from. They would enlist for a certain period of time. When their time was up, they went home. It also is probably the inception of what we think of as the National Guard now. That war was won by basically civilians in uniform, and all of those people were certainly veterans. By 1812, we beat the British in the Revolutionary War. I got to be careful, my wife's British, so I always have to tone this down. But we clobbered them in the Revolutionary War, and by golly, they couldn't let things alone. So they came after us again in 1812, and they actually marched up and burned down our White House. They got pretty close to getting us, but we knocked them down again, and that was the War of 1812. A lot of people forget that war, but it was no less hard fought. The Civil War, by the time we got to that, the Civil War was particularly brutal for America. It was a situation where our country was being torn apart. You had people that were determined to secede or to leave our union because they wanted to live a different lifestyle. They wanted a different set of laws. They wanted to continue things like slavery and other assorted things. And then you had another group of people that wanted to preserve the union, and they wanted to abolish and end the practice of slavery in our country. But it was a war that was hard fought, and it was the war that we lost the most people because everybody fighting in that war on both sides were Americans. It was truly a brother against brother. There were a lot of families that were split. Up here in Wisconsin, we were pretty much solidly Union, but you go down into Missouri and some of our other states, and sometimes it was county by county as to whether you wore blue or gray. A lot of hard feelings, the largest number of casualties, because everybody killed was American. It was horrible. All those people now are seen as veterans, rebels in Union. We glorify them all because they fought and they died for what they believed in. Hindsight is 20/20, and we know how it turned out, and we're all fortunate that it did the way it did, but all those people are celebrated as veterans regardless of the side they fought. Spanish-American War was another one that came kind of in between. A lot of people don't know much about that. It's when we fought Spain for control of our hemisphere. And then we get into World War I, the Great War. We talked about that. World War I, again, was just an atrocious war. I don't think any war is good. There's no such thing as happy wars versus unhappy wars. They're all bad. But that one was particularly brutal because we were still trying to fight it the old-fashioned way with lines of soldiers attacking each other, but the other side had more efficient ways of killing us. And so the mayhem, the maiming, and the death was just stupendous. We were late getting into that war. Europe had been fighting it for several years. We were determined not to get into it, but we did get into it, and frankly, we were the reason it turned out the way it did. We were fresh people, fresh blood, and we went in there and we turned the tide of the war and thought that we'd finish the wars forever. World War II, we tried desperately to stay out of World War II, just like World War I. I think by nature we're a peaceful country. We don't like being picked on. We're quick to fight back, but we generally are more peaceful than anything else. We tried hard to stay out of World War II. It had been going on for several years, and then when we were bombed by Japan, it took all the guesswork out. We jumped into it with both feet, and we had war on both sides, against Germany and the Axis, and of course against Japan. And that also took away the Great War, the war to end all wars, because now we had a World War I and a World War II. A lot of World War II veterans are alive today. We're losing them quickly. They're getting up in years, but there's still a fairly significant number of World War II veterans that when you read history, you can still go talk to somebody that lived it. And I would encourage everybody to do that. World War II was hard fought. We saved Europe, we saved ourselves. We're not all speaking German now, or Japanese, which is a good thing. And we thought we were done again. World War II, we had hundreds of thousands of people come back home, ready to get on with their lives, to take off their uniforms and start raising families and going to school and getting careers. And then suddenly we have another war, Korea. There's also a lot of Korean War veterans still with us. They're a little bit younger than the World War II, but not a lot. Korea was a war of aggression. The North Koreans streamed over the border, determined to take over South Korea, and the only thing holding them back, frankly, was us. And we went over there and we fought hard. The feeling was, oh my gosh, is this stuff ever going to end? A lot of people call it the forgotten war because a lot of people were so concerned about getting away from war that they just didn't want to recognize it as a war. It was a war equally as brutal as any other war. And of course, those veterans, a lot of them are still with us. got through Korea, we thought, okay, life is good. Vietnam comes along. We have a tremendous number of Vietnam veterans with us now. They're the largest group of veterans in the United States. In my short time as CVSO, it's gone from the World War II Korean War as the largest. Now they are dwarfed by the Vietnam group. They are by far the largest group of veterans in our country. We got through Vietnam, a very long, hard-fought war, longer than pretty much any other war we've been in. And then suddenly we've got Desert Storm. Desert Storm popped up. We went in to protect Kuwait. And it was a very short war, but a war nonetheless. We've got a lot of Kuwait veterans. OAF and OAF. Those are the current wars. OAF supposedly is done. We're now sending another 1,500 troops in there. I'm not sure what's happening. My youngest daughter's an OAF veteran. My oldest son-in-law is a B-52 pilot, or bombardier. He's an OAF veteran. Both of them combat vets. Very ugly. And I will sum up. OAF is our current war over in Afghanistan. I'm told that we're drawing down, but we're still sending people. I was just up in Spooner a couple of weeks ago. We just sent off a group in Spooner to go over there to assist in the removal of forces, but it's anything but over there. So we continue to build new veterans. We've got a lot of older veterans. Some of the newest veterans look a lot like the younger folks in this room. Some of them are only a year or so out of high school. And that's pretty sobering when you think about it. There's a lot of young people that should be worrying about dates and going to social functions that know what the sound of bullets fired at them and rockets and mortars are like. And that's a sad thing. I guess I'll finish by saying that, again, vets come in all shapes and sizes. There's a lot of variety. But today is a day to recognize them for their service and to thank them. And if you're looking for a veteran, we don't all look like veterans necessarily. Some of us wear caps, VFW, Legion, DAV. Some of them wear military ball caps. But most of us kind of look like anybody else. Grandpas, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, uncles, nephews, nieces. We look like anybody because we generally don't wear a uniform anymore. Today's a day to give them a hug, give them a kiss. It's a day to say thank you. And know that the veterans, they'll never ask for a thank you. And they don't expect a thank you. But if and when they get one, they really, really reach. And like I said, these are the people that signed a check. They were ready to stand up and catch a bullet. A lot of them did. A lot of them aren't with us anymore. But all the ones that did make it back home are no less valiant, no less heroic than the folks that didn't make it back home. So, again, if you can read, I like this one. If you can read, thank a teacher. If you can read in English, thank your veterans. Thank you.
John F. Kennedy declared, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." We are grateful, Lieutenant Commander Gates, for your commitment and willingness to defend our country, and for taking the time to share your experience in words of hope with us.
Mrs. Schmidt and the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade choirs will continue to inspire us as they sing "Thank You Soldiers" and "America the Beautiful" with featured soloists Faith Meister, Holy June, and Miles.
David and Spanish Smith for the blending of those two beautiful songs.
For 236 years, the American flag has been a symbol of our nation's unity, a banner of hope and freedom for generations of Americans.
The flag has been a source of pride and inspiration to untold millions of Americans, including those who followed it into battle with conviction and great courage. The New Richmond Post of the Veterans of Foreign Wars were unable to be with us here today. Ms. Lombardo will now explain the colors of our flag. Old Glory, the red, white, and blue, our flag. This national emblem is the symbol of our great country, our heritage, and our place in this world. We owe reverence and respect to our flag. It represents the highest ideals of liberty and justice. To the veterans throughout American history, the Stars and Stripes has served as a symbol of their service and as a continuing testimony that their service was worthwhile. For more than 200 years, Old Glory has flown above our country through strife and peace, in tragedy and triumph. Our flag is a symbol of a nation comprised of people dedicated to freedom. The red, white, and blue colors and their arrangement on the flag are often interpreted as expressing the very character of our nation. The royal blue represents the loyalty and unity of our citizens. The Continental Congress of 1777 resolved that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. George Washington described the white in the flag as symbolizing our desire for liberty and to remain a land of the free. The red signifies the courage and the sacrifices of the nation's defenders. Old Glory, this flag which we honor and under which we serve, is the emblem of our unity, our thoughts, our purpose as a nation. It has no other character than that which we give from generation to generation. And yet, though silent, it speaks to us, speaks of the past and of the men and women who went before us. Woodrow Wilson. Our flag represents our country and is considered emblematic of the respect and pride we have for ideals which we hold as a nation. Our flag is a precious symbol, and we display it proudly. I invite each veteran to come up to the microphone. Students, if you are related to one of our veterans, please come down and introduce them to our assembly. Veterans, please state your name, branch and years of service, and if you would like to, what Veterans Day means to you.
Don't sit in the front row. I'm Gary Schneidock, United States Navy, 6 years service. Did a tour in Vietnam. 2 grandchildren here in school, Alyssa and Brett Iverson. No idea where they're at. I'm not quite sure what Veterans Day means to me. Many of you know that when we came back from Vietnam, we were not welcomed. We were not given any accolades or parades. We were greeted with less than happy circumstances. So a day like today is just more. So thank you.
I'm Jerry Mikla. I was in the Navy from 1966 through 69. And I have 3 grandkids here. Katie Larson, Ryan Larson, and Joyce Kinsmiller. I've got 8 grandkids in Cypress Central. But he summed up my things about Veterans Day. Thank you for everybody here putting on this program.
I'm Glenn Christensen, World War II, U.S. Navy Air Corps. Spent 2 years in the Navy Air Corps. Too young to remember much about that. Anyway.
From St. Croix Central. 32 years here. So I really appreciate all the work that's gone in by the student council and all the people that came here, the band and everybody else that has done that stuff, the staff and everybody that's been here. My salute goes over to all the military people here. I spent 4 years in the Navy, 1954 to 58, which was the Korean War, and part of it. And I was on 2 different ships. Started on the East Coast and went around to the West Coast and did a lot of tour in China and Japan. And I appreciated all that I was able to do and was offered to me. And I was glad to be of service to my country. And you just have to remember that it takes more than just military people. It has to be the people at home too. All the people that gave us the support. We appreciate all that. Veterans Day is about that to me, the support and the thankfulness that I've been given. Appreciate it very much and thank you.
I was in the Navy for 20 years. Veterans Day, what it means to me, just the appreciation of this, all of you, appreciation for what we did. One thing that I just want to add, well, there's all the veterans that you see here, there's veterans a lot of people don't talk about. That's the spouses and the families of veterans. They serve just like we do. So, thank you.
My name is Andy Rusopoulos, United States Marine Corps, 6 years, Desert Storm. It's my son Jacob Rusopoulos, my daughter Natalie Rusopoulos. Veterans Day means to me is remembering those who serve, those who put their country before themselves.
Tony Billiette,
States Marine Corps. My daughter Sierra served on Operation Eagle Claw off the USS Nimitz. I'd like to just kind of bring up a couple of things, and that's that during World War II there were 16 million active service members. We're down to 1 million of those World War II vets. They die at 1,000 a day. Take the time to get to know them. That's living history. Soon it will be written history. Thank you for a great program.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. My name is Carol Nardi. I was U.S. Marine with my husband from 1959 to 62. My granddaughters have already gone through the St. Croix Central System and are now in college. I'm honored to be among these gentlemen. I was never in harm's way. I had boot camp at Parris Island and I got stationed there. But I was in the recruit training regiment, so I typed up no Xerox, no computers back then, lots of carbons, all the reports from graduating platoons. I had four brothers in the Navy, and my 3 sons were also in the Navy. One was in the Coast Guard and the Marines. He just retired. Most of all, yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday. There's lots of celebration this weekend for Veterans Day, free meals, free parties, and everything. But boys and girls, I love this program most of all. I love the sharing, and I love being in the school. I lost 3 friends from my grade school in Vietnam. Their names are on the wall. I lost my Marine Corps boss. And I'm just saying, you're our future. And I appreciate your patriotism and all that you do, and I thank all of you gentlemen here who actually were in war. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Keep this up.
My name is Jerry Aptall. My granddaughter behind me there, Kiara, who goes to school here. I was in the Army National Guard from 1959 to 63 and was called up by President Kennedy for during the Berlin crisis.
This is our grandpa, Dave Creer.
I had 13 years of service. I was in the mechanized infantry, and I'm proud to have been able to serve this great country.
Hi, Mike Gunderson. Thursday will mark 28 years in the Minnesota National Guard. I'm with Anna and Ryan, the kids. Parents are out here as well, so thanks for coming today. St. Croix Central, great program. Keep it up. It's remarkable. And I just wanted to say what an honor it is to be seated next to some of America's finest up here. Thank you for what you did.
I've served with the Army for 26 years, currently still serving. I served in Desert Storm and now 2 operations on Operation Iraqi Freedom. This is my daughter, Mackenzie Smurth. I really want to thank you all for this great program that you have.
My name is Nancy. I've been in the National Guard for 16 years now, and I've served in Iraq. I appreciate Veterans Day. Memory of all vets that have served behind me.
I'm Richard Timmerman. I'm with my granddaughter Peyton. I'm also a 1966 graduate of St. Croix Central. I was in the with combat infantry in Vietnam from 1968 through 1961. One of the things that's happened in the last 24 hours is that I received 3 calls from people that I served with in Vietnam who live far away, wishing me a good Veterans Day. I don't know if we say Happy Veterans Day, but a good Veterans Day. One was my medic in Vietnam who helped me when I was wounded, and another 2 were platoon members. I think one of the things that they said, which is something that all of us who are veterans can relate to, is that we gave what we could give. And sometimes it didn't seem enough, but in retrospect, we gave what we could give. Thank you.
For Mrs. Hyman. Hi, my name is Katie Larson. And I'm Sydney Burgess. This afternoon, we will be representing Mrs. Hyman. Mrs. Hynebuck is in the Army. She made a very challenging decision after her junior year. She decided to go to She is very intelligent and a very unique person. And we thank her so much for serving our country and being so brave. Thank you. Thank you.
I served in the Army National Guard for 10 years. I spent a year in Iraq under Operation Iraqi Freedom.
My name is Don Graff. I was in the Army Reservist for 6 years. And this is my grandson, Bryce Becker. And my daughter, Janie, also works in the office at the school here. And I'd like to thank him for this program. It's very nice.
Dave Becker, served in the Army from 1987 to 1981. Also a graduate of St. Croix Central in 1987. I'd like to thank the student council, the teachers, the staff, everybody for putting this wonderful program on. Thank you.
I served in the Army, the 69th General Support Group in Fairbanks, Alaska, as a Ranger Department. And I want to thank all of you for putting this on. It's very touching. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Bonte. I live in Hammond, and I'm very proud to be a St. Croix Central and a veteran. I was drafted in the Army in '71. During Vietnam, I spent 2 years in Germany, and this is my granddaughter, and I'm very proud to be a veteran.
I served in the National Guard from 70 to 79. This is my granddaughter, Kenzie. Thank you for putting on a good veterans program.
Jardines. I was in the Army in 1963 to 1966, and my daughter-in-law is a teacher over at the high school, Heather Jardines, and I am the commander at the post in Hammond here, post 432, so if there's any veterans that live in the Hammond-Roberts area that would like to join, you can see me afterwards. We'd love to have you. Thank you. And thank you so much for coming on.
This is my grandpa, Galen Anderson.
I was in the Army from 66 to 68, and I just want to thank you for the recognition today.
This is my grandpa, Bruce.
I'm Bruce Bond. I was in the Army. Was in from 65 through 67. People have put on a fantastic program.
This is my grandpa, Harry Felber.
I'm Harry Felber. I was in the Navy from 1967, 1971. And I did a one-year tour in Da Nang, Vietnam, and 2 years at the submarine base in Guam. And thank you very much for this program.
This is my grandpa, Walt Johnson.
This is my grandson, Logan Walter Johnson. I served in the strongest and best Navy in the world from 1966 to 1970. Had a tour in Vietnam, and I served all my time as a tin can sailor. That would be aboard a destroyer.
Hi, I'm Russ Johnson. I served the U.S. Navy from 1985 to 1989, and I really appreciate this beautiful program you guys put on, and this is what being a veteran is all about, respect and admiration of all of you. Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Wolski. This is my cousin Katie Gostovich. I served in the Navy from 2004 to 2010 as a hospital corpsman, and I really appreciate the program you guys put on. Thank you.
I'm Lowell Johnson, Russ's dad, and my granddaughter. I want to thank you also. I was in the Navy from 61 to 63, so I used to be real action. But I did my part to try to get how what's going on, and never had to partake in it.
This is our stepdad, Luke Tajima.
I am Luke Tajima. I served 13 years in the Minnesota Air National Guard, still serving. And Veterans Day, what it means to me, a colleague of mine, Dr. Friend in Iraq, tell me that hopefully in your career in the military you have what are called aha moments. And those are the realization of why you're doing what you're doing. And that's what Veterans Day today means to me. Thank you.
This is my dad, Stark.
Chris Stark, this is my daughter Abigail Stark. I have a son, Nathan Stark, who's in elementary school. A little thing on the nose is Nicholas Stark. I was in the Air Force for 6 years. I did about 2 or 3 years here in the United States, and I did another 8.5 years in England. What Veterans Day means to me, I guess now at 53, I look back and all the mistakes you made in life growing up, and I can say the only thing I really did right in life was serving for 6 years. Thank you.
Reuben Coleman. He served in the Coast Guard for a number of years.
I was in the Coast Guard from 63 to 67, spent a little time on the East Coast and in Alaska and in Ohio, and I appreciate this program. And along with these 3 grandchildren, I have some adopted grandchildren here, Bryce and Elliot and Joseph Miller. Thank you for this program.
My name is Steve Walther. I was invited by my 2 granddaughters here. Some of them Hans Dino. I was in the U.S. Air Force for 4 years, 70 to 74. I was a technical training instructor, and I stayed stateside. I really appreciate this program. It's been great. Thank you.
This is my dad, Michael Neighbors, and he served in the Navy.
My name is Michael Neighbors. I enlisted in the Navy in '88. Was medically discharged in 1991 after injuries. And hey, we can't thank you guys enough for everything you've done. Appreciate it.
This is my dad. I'm Tim Olson, St. Croix Central, class of '88. I spent 8 years in the Navy working on fighter aircraft. Thank you for this wonderful, wonderful show, you guys. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, honored veterans. At this time, I am pleased to introduce Caleb Lentz and Carly Martinez as they lead us in a ceremony honoring the POWs, those missing in action, servicemen and women no longer with us, and all veterans and servicemen and women who continue to serve.
Call your attention a small table which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It will be set for one, symbolizing the fact that some are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as prisoners of war or POWs, missing in action, MIAs.
We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families today. So we join together to pay our humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence.
This table is small enough for only one person, symbolizing the frailty of one person alone. Reminds us of the loneliness we feel without them. Remember,
The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our men and women still missing. Remember,
the tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of the response to their country's call to arms. All children remain free.
the single red rose in the base signifies the blood that many have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of the United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith, awaiting their return. Remember,
One candle stands for the frailty of the soldier alone, trying to stand up to those who are against him. Remember,
the candle also reminds us of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. Remember,
the black ribbon on the candle reminds us of those who will not be coming home. Remember,
a slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of the bitter fate of those missing in a foreign land.
remember.
Salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the tears shed by family and loved ones as they wait. Remember.
The glass is inverted. They are not with us here today. Remember.
The chair is empty. They are not here, and our lives are incomplete because they were unable to sit with us today. They were there for us. We are still here for them. Remember.
In honoring America's POW/MIAs, each of them, all of them, please stand and silently face their table, the table where they should be sitting with us today. We stand silently in their absence as we remember. Thank you. Everyone may be seated. This concludes our Veterans Day program. We would like to thank our veterans, our speaker, Lieutenant Commander Rick Gates, students, staff, and community members for attending our Veterans Day ceremony.
As you leave here today and head back to 9th hour, please take a moment to shake the hands of our honored guests and say thank you for your service. Please remain silent as we retire the colors.
Color guard, attention.
1-1, please stand.
Color guard, advance.
Color guard, retire the colors.
Color guard, retreat.
We thank you for attending today's program. Veterans, we have 2 student council representatives that would like to lead you out to where we will form a receiving area. And we'll get some chairs because they can get rather long. And students, please take the time to say thank you and to give your grandma, grandpa, dad, cousin, uncle a hug on your way out. Thank you.